These lessons are also recorded, so if you ever want to watch them again, you can find them on the LMS. Or if you miss a lesson or you can't attend a lesson, you can watch the recordings as well. Okay, so please have a look at the share screen. We're going to do a quick introduction to IELTS, what it is. So first of all, I'd like to know in the chat box, have you done IELTS before, or is this your first time? So have you done IELTS before? If you have, then just type yes in the chat, or maybe it's your first time. Okay, I have one yes. It looks like most people say that it's their first time. Somebody's done it twice already. Okay, great. So if you've done it already, obviously you are familiar with the test, but it seems like for a lot of people, it's their first time doing the test. So this all might be new to you. All right, but that's great. Either one is fine. Okay, so what is IELTS? IELTS is an English language proficiency test, which means that we do the test in order to show our English level. Okay, and then we can use the test either for higher education, which means going into a university, usually in another country, in an English-speaking country, or we may use it for work, for immigration, and things like that. Okay, so the test has 4 different parts. And they are the 4 skills of a language: listening, reading, speaking, and writing. Okay, so you have a different test for each of these 4 skills. Okay, and then obviously we use the test either to go to universities, training programs, work, immigration, and such. There are 2 different kinds of tests. You have the academic test and the general test. So you'll do the academic IELTS if you want to use the test to study at university. Okay, either an undergraduate degree or a postgraduate degree. If you don't need it for university and you just need it for work or for immigration, then you may be doing a general training test. Okay, so these 2 tests are different because we're using them for different reasons. So quickly just tell me in the chat, are you doing the academic test or are you doing the general? So please write academic or general in the chat box. I think most people will be doing the academic, but if you are doing the general, then please let me know, because I'll have to just provide some extra work for you as we go through the test. So because most people do the academic, this course will be focused on the academic test. So if you are doing general, you need to tell me now so that I can give you some extra work to do. Right, but so far everyone's doing academic, great. For some of the tests, they're the same. So I said we have listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So for speaking and listening, the tests for academic and general are the same test. It's only for reading and writing that the tests will be different. Okay, so if you are doing the general, some of the tests are the same. Okay, and then obviously we know that the test is scored on a band score system. So we're going to discuss that band score system as well. So the first thing to know is just, are you doing general test? Are you doing academic tests? And also, what do you need it for? Okay, so if most of you are doing academic, you probably want it for university. So let's quickly have a look at the 4 tests. So you do listening, reading, writing, and speaking. So the listening, reading, and writing are all done on the same day. So you come into the IELTS test, first you do listening, which is about half an hour, and you do reading, which is an hour, and writing, which is also an hour. So 2.5 hours. There are no breaks in between the tests, so you just move from one test to the next. Okay. The speaking test is not on the same day. It can be held on the same day, but it can also be a week before or a week after. Okay, so it depends on the testing here. So I'm not sure what yours will be. So either on the same day or a week before and a week after. But you should have a break in between these tests and the speaking if you do it on the same day. So we're going to quickly look at a breakdown for all these tests. Listening, which you're going to do with me today. The listening test is the same for academic in general. Okay, and it tests your range of listening skills. The test is 30 minutes. Okay, there's 4 different parts and there's 40 questions in total. Okay, so all these different parts will have different types of questions. So what we're going to do to prepare you for the listening test is practice the different task types. The reading test is different for academic and general, so there's different tests. The academic tests will have academic texts on an academic topic. The general test will be more about social or work topics. Okay, so the reading is 1 hour long. You have 3 long texts for academic, okay? And for each text, you have to answer some questions. There are 40 questions in total. All right, so for writing, it's also different for academic and general. Both writing tests have 2 tasks. For academic, the first one, you'll be describing some visual information like a graph or a table. And for the second task, you'll be writing an essay. The first task is shorter than the second one, 150 words. Task 2 is 250 words. Okay, so task 2 is obviously longer. So at 60 minutes, you have 1 hour in which to complete these 2 questions. Okay, so timing can be tricky for some people, but we're going to practice writing in the weeks to come. The last test is the speaking test. Okay, for this test, you'll be asked questions by a certified IELTS examiner. Okay, there's 3 parts to the speaking test, and it's the same test for general and academic. Part 1, you'll just ask some personal questions about yourself. Part 2, you have to talk about a topic. And part 3, you have to ask some more complex questions. The speaking is not very long, only 11 to 14 minutes. And then you get your marks based on your performance, which the examiner will give you band scores for. Before we move on to listening, let's quickly just have a brief look at band scores and how they work for each test. So for each test, the band score is worked out slightly differently. I'm sure a lot of you know that the band score is between 0 and 9, okay? 9 being the highest, obviously 0 being the lowest. For some tests, you can get a half score as well. So like an 8.5, a 7.5. You get a band score for each skill, as you can see here. And then your final band score is an overall of these 4 skills. So you need to try and do well in each skill. You don't want to get a very high mark for listening, like an 8, but then only a 4 for writing, because that will bring your overall mark down. Okay, so for each test, you get a band score. Your final score on your certificate is your overall score. Before I move on, I'd like to know, do you know what band score you need? So it's quite important that you know what band score you need so that when you're doing practice tests, you can check if you're getting what you need, if you need some more practice, and so on. So please type in the chat box for me, what band score do you need for your IELTS test, if you know. If you don't know, then that's something that you need to find out. So either from the university you want to apply to or from your work and so on. Okay, so far I have 6.5, 7, 6, 6.5. So for everyone, this will be different. It depends on what university you want to go to. Okay, 6, 5.5, 6.5. 5.5 to 6.5, Yeah, it's completely different depending on what university you want to go to or what you need the IELTS for. I would say the average is between 5.5 and 7. Some people do need it higher, like an 8. Some people only need a 5, but I would say the average is 5.5 to 7. Okay. So obviously, depending on what band score you need, when you do practice tests, you need to check, are you achieving that when you do practice tests, which we'll do in the course, or do you need to aim higher, and so on. So that will give you a good idea of what to expect when you do the actual exam. Okay, so keep your band score in mind all the time as we go through the tests. So the band score for each test is slightly different. For reading and listening, you have 40 questions, and the number of correct questions will give you the band score. For example, for listening, if you get 26 to 29 correct questions out of 40, you get a band 6.5. About 50% correct questions, 18 to 22, is a band 5.5. Okay, so if you're looking for 5.5, you only need to get 50% of the questions correct for listening. If you need a 7, you need to get 30 to 31. That means only 9 incorrect answers. For reading, it's similar but slightly different. There's also 40 questions. And if you get 22 to 19, so again, about 50% correct, you get a band 5.5. If you need a band 6.5, you need to get 29 to 27 correct answers. Okay, so again, that's only 13 incorrect answers. So when we do practice tests for listening and reading, we can work out our band score for that straight away. So it's really easy to figure out what your band score is for listening and reading. For writing, it's slightly more complicated. So when you do the writing, you get marked on these 4 different criteria. So an IELTS examiner will mark the writing and give you a score based on these. So you have task achievement, task response. Okay, that's basically how well did you answer the question? Did you answer all the points? Did you, for the essay, give a conclusion and so on? Then you have coherence and cohesion. This is your organization. Do you use linking words? Is it in paragraphs? Are your ideas in a good order? You have lexical resource. Lexical is vocabulary. So this is things like spelling, paraphrasing, using a wide range of vocabulary, avoiding lots of errors and spelling mistakes. The last category is grammar range and accuracy. So do you use a range of different grammar structures, sentence structures, tenses? Is your punctuation correct? Do you have a lot of errors in grammar? So this can be complicated. I'll explain it in more detail when we do the listening later, the writing later on. Okay, and we'll have a look at a description. So for each of these criteria, you get a band score. Okay, so vocabulary, maybe you get a band 7, grammar, maybe you get band 6. And then your overall will be based on what you get for each of these criteria. Okay, but I'll explain that a bit more later on. So speaking is similar, where we also have 4 different criteria. You get a band score for each one, and then your overall score is worked out. So for speaking, you have fluency. How well do you speak? You have lots of hesitations. Lexical resource, again, this is vocabulary, grammatical range and accuracy, and your pronunciation. Are you easy to understand? Do you use good intonation, and so on? Okay, so for each one of these, you get a band score, and then you have your overall band score, okay, from each one. So these are quite complicated for writing and speaking, but we'll discuss it more when we do those skills later on. Okay, you don't have to remember all of that. Obviously, as we go through each skill, we'll discuss each skill in detail. And so let's go ahead and start with listening. First, I'm going to quickly see what you remember from what I just told you. So please use the chat. And can you remember how long is the listening test? Okay, so quickly type in the chat box. Do you remember how long is the listening test? Okay, so a lot of people are saying 30, 40 minutes. Both of those are actually correct. So there's two different types of IELTS tests. Either you have the paper-based test or you have the computer-based test. But I think at the moment, they might only be doing the paper-based. Can you quickly tell me in the chat, are you doing the computer-based test or the paper-based test? So just write computer or paper in the chat. Yeah, I think at the moment, everyone's doing the computer-based test because of COVID. Yeah. So the computer-based test is slightly different. For this test, you only get 30 minutes. So if you do the paper-based test, you get an extra 10 minutes to transfer your answers from the question paper onto the answer sheet. But for the computer-based test, you don't get this time because you type in your answers straight away. So you don't need to copy anything onto an answer sheet. I think at the end of the test, they may give you 3 minutes to just check your answers, but you don't get an extra 10 minutes for transfer time if you're doing the computer-based, which I think everyone is at the moment. Okay, so computer-based is 30 minutes. Okay, do you remember how many parts there are? How many different parts there are or sections in the test? Okay, some people remember, great, there's 4. So we have part 1 to part 4, and the parts get harder as we go on. So part 1 is going to be the easiest, and part 4 is going to be the hardest. This is also, remember I said that the test for listening for academic in general are the same. This is because part 1 and part 2 are about a social or a general topic, and part 3 and part 4 are an academic topic. That's why part 1 and part 2 are easier, and part 4 and part 3 and part 4 are harder. So as we go through and do the practice test, you should do better in part 1, and you may find part 4 a little bit more tricky. Also, it's what are you going to listen to? So part 1 and part 3 are a conversation between 2 or more people. Okay, so part 1 and part 3 is going to be more than one person speaking. Part 2 and part 4 are what we call monologues, which means there's one person speaking. So one person just giving a talk or a lecture about something. Okay, some people, it's easier to listen to one person speaking. For other people, it's easier to listen to a conversation. Okay, so it just depends on you. But just remember this so that you know what you're going to be listening to. Okay, next question. How many questions are in the test? So there's 4 parts, but how many questions in total? Great, so some people know this. Wonderful. 40 questions. That means there's 10 questions per part. Okay, and how many marks are there? Yeah, after you finish the test, the computer-based, I think they'll give you about 3 minutes to just go back and check all the different sections. So once you put in the answer, you can still go back and check. So don't worry about that. You can go back through the test. Okay, so questions, there are 40 questions, 40 marks and 40 questions. So as somebody said in the chat, 1 mark per question. Okay, so 1 correct answer equals 1 mark. Okay, so that's why your band score is out of 40. So if you get 50% right, about 20, 19, you're going to get the band 5.5, remember. Okay, so your marks relate directly to your band score. And the last one, really important, how many times do you listen to each dialogue? Great, only one time. So this means that you really have to focus and listen carefully. In some tests, like the Cambridge test, you get to listen twice. For IELTS, you don't get that. Okay, so try to stay focused and keep your attention on the listening. If you miss something, you don't get to listen to it again. Okay, so we looked at the band score already. You get your mark out of 40, and that relates to your band score. And we'll do a practice test next week so that you can check your band score. Then one of the important things with listening that we're going to practice is the different types of tasks. Okay, there's about 7 different types of tasks, and for each one you have to do different things. So let's have a look at some examples as I explain it. So this, and it'll tell you at the top what kind of task it is. So this is a form completion task. As you can see, you have a form, you have to fill in some missing words or numbers. This is quite common for task 1. You have a short answer task where you have a question and you need to write down an answer. Okay. You have a sentence completion task where you have a sentence and you need to fill in a missing word. This can be at the end of the sentence. It could be in the middle of the sentence as well. That's quite common. For this, you have to watch your grammar, right? Your grammar needs to be correct to get your answer correct. We have this, which is labeling a plan. You also get labeling a map. That's another kind of task. So labeling a plan and labeling a map is similar. So you have different spaces on the map and you have a list of words and you need to match them to the correct space. Okay, so you'll listen to somebody describing a plan or a map and you need to match the correct answers. Okay, then we have our very common multiple choice question where you have a question and you need to choose A, B, or C. There's also a different kind of multiple choice. So for some questions, you have A, B, C, and you need to match them to a few different questions. So for each of these, you choose the same options. So media studies, you have to choose A, B, C. Women in power, A, B, C. Okay. So either you have different options for each question or you need to match the same options to different questions. So there's 2 different types of multiple choice. You also have matching tasks where you have a list of questions and a box of answers and you need to match the correct answer to the correct question. So this is different to multiple choice. This is a matching task. So each one matches with a different answer. Okay, this is the more common multiple choice question, ABC, question, ABC, choose the best answer. Then we have a note completion task where you have like a summary of the listening and you need to listen and fill in the missing word. So there's a few different varieties of this task: table completion, note completion, summary completion. They all look a little bit different, but they're similar because we have a summary and we listen and fill in the missing words. Okay, so that's the last type of task. So sometimes there's different varieties of the same task. Another type of task that we didn't see here is a diagram completion. Similar to the plan completion, you get a picture, a diagram, and you need to match the words in the box. Okay, I don't expect you to remember all of them right now. As we go through the test, I'll tell you what type of task we're doing and give you some tips on each different type of task. All right, so let's get started with the listening. So I'm going to be playing some audios and we're going to be doing some tasks together. So please use the chat to answer questions as we go through. Somebody's asked in the listening, if we need to complete a number, should we write down 2 or 2? For numbers, you can just use the figure, the number. So 2. Okay, it's much easier. Both are actually correct, but obviously writing a number doesn't take as long as writing the word, and you don't have to worry about spelling mistakes. So both are correct, but I would advise you use numbers, the figure. Okay, so let's just get started and have a look at the listening test. So as I said before, there's 4 sections, 4 parts to the test. The first 2 are general social topics. The 3 and 4 are academic topics. So first, what we're going to do is just listen to a little introduction. And the introduction gives us the context, what we're going to be listening to. Okay. So first, you listen to a short introduction in which they'll tell you who is speaking, what they're speaking about, and why they're speaking. So we call this the context. After you listen to the context, you have about 30 to 45 seconds to look at the questions. Okay, so before they play the audio, you always have some time to read the question. So use this time well, use it to underline keywords, use it to guess what you think the answers could be, and so on. Okay, so this introduction gives us the context of what we're going to be listening to. So I'm going to play you these 4 introductions, and as you listen, I want you to match the context to the correct section. So you can just use a piece of paper. So please get a piece of paper or a notebook, have it in front of you, and just write down the number and then the matching letter. For number 1, that will be a C. Okay, so number 1 matches with organizing a party. Okay, you can read the question as well. So this will be the question, total number of guests. Susan will organize invitations and something. You don't need to answer these. All you need to do is listen and match the correct context, why they're speaking or what they're speaking about, to the correct section. So the first one's been done for you. So you just need to write down 2, 3, and 4 and the matching context. I'm going to play the audio for you now.
Recording 2. 1. You will hear a telephone conversation between a man and his
about a birthday party they need to organize. 2. You will hear a woman speaking on the radio about buying presents for people of different ages. 3. You will hear 2 biology students explaining their research ideas to their university lecturer. 4. You will hear an ecology student giving a presentation about a recent field trip to Canada.
Okay, so let's match the context. You can quickly have a look now if you didn't finish it. So please write in the chat box the letter A to F, which one matches with number 2. What is the context of number 2? Is it B, discussing an assignment? D, describing a research project? So just write the letter in the chat. Take a guess if you're not sure. Okay, great, everyone said E, which is correct. Buying presents. What about number 3? Okay, a lot of people said D, describing a research project. But quickly have a look at, here there's more than one person speaking. So what verb do we use when we're talking about more than one person speaking? So the answer is not D for number 3. So have a look at what else you think it could be and look for a verb that we use when there's more than one person speaking. Great, discussing, good. So have a look, which one is the correct answer for number 3? Okay, so this should be B. It's not just one person describing a research project, okay? If they're students, usually what they're discussing is an assignment, okay? Not a research project, this is usually for professionals, but an assignment. So then which one matches with number 4? So number 4 is somebody talking about the impact of loss of habitat to native animals. They speak about the aim and they speak about the methods. Okay, so this one is D. It's somebody describing a research project. Okay. So this gives us an idea of what we're going to be listening to. So number 1, the first part is a conversation between 2 people. And they're usually, it's usually one person trying to find information from another person. It could be an interview, or it could be 2 people trying to organize something. Part 2 is one person speaking, a monologue, okay? And they're talking about different topics. It could be describing a place, an event that's going to happen, and something like that. Part 3 is usually going to be students talking about an assignment. It's academic. So this is a conversation. Sometimes there are 2 or 3 people speaking. Okay. And usually for part 3, they're speaking about some kind of assignment that they did. It could be a student speaking to their teacher, okay, discussing their assignment as well. Then part 4 is going to be one person speaking, a monologue. So this is usually maybe a professional working in an academic field or a student, and they're giving a talk about an academic topic, okay? This could be any academic topic. So there's a wide range of topics that they could speak about for all 4 of these. Okay, let's move on. So another thing that's important for IELTS is using the correct spelling. For the IELTS listening, if you get the spelling wrong, your answer is also wrong. So it's really important to listen carefully, use the correct spelling, and to go back and check your spelling. It's easy when you're doing an exam and you're writing quickly to make spelling mistakes. So at the end of the test, please just go back and quickly check for any mistakes that you've made. Okay, so often, especially for part 1, you may need to listen for a name of a person or a place. Sometimes the name is spelled out for you, meaning my name is Tia, that's T-I-Y-A, okay? If they spell it out like that, you're only going to hear the spelling once. So it's important to listen carefully. It's also important that you're able to recognize the different letters of the English alphabet. And some letters sound similar, like M and N. So it's important that you can hear the difference between letters that sound similar. So we're going to practice that now. So again, write your answers on a piece of paper. So you're going to listen and write the letters that you hear. You may need to write one letter, like A, or you may hear 2 letters, in which case you write down both. Okay, so it's not a word, just write down the letters that you hear.
Recording 3. 1,
I'm not sure, but I think it starts with an F.
2,
No, I'm pretty sure it's double L.
3,
Is that M for Mary?
4,
Sorry, Was that last letter a T or a C?
5.
Do you know if it's spelt with a CH or SH?
Recording 5.
All right, let's check. So we're just going to write the letters that we heard. Please write in the chat box, what did you hear for number 1? Great, an F. Okay, number 2. Great, double L. Okay, so in English, we may say double L or we may say LL, depends on the person. Number 3. M, great. Number 4. So 2 letters, T, the second letter, C. And number 5. CH, so ch sound, and SH, a sh sound. Okay, great. So sometimes they may spell out a word for you in which you can listen and write down the letters. If you think you have any problem with hearing the difference between letters, you can just go online on YouTube, get a recording of the English alphabet, and just practice saying the different letters. So sometimes they may not spell out every single letter, and we have different ways in English to help you spell out a word. Okay, so let's move to the next one. I just want you to listen and fill in the missing word or number. Okay, so you may need to write down a word or you may need to write down a number for each one.
Recording 4. 1.
And can I have your name, please?
Yes, it's Andrew Brown.
Is that spelt the same as the colour?
Yes, but with an E at the end. 2.
And what's your address, in case we need to post any information out to you?
Oh, OK. I live at 63 Beaton Road. That's B-E-E-T-O-N.
Sorry, was that last letter N or M?
N for November. 3.
Do you have a website I can go to?
Yes. Just go to www.kickers.com.
Is that Kickers?
That's right. All one word and all lowercase.
4.
Where shall we meet then? Somewhere in the city?
That's a good idea. What about at that hotel on the corner of Queen Street and Mary Street? What's it called?
Oh, it's the Rose Hotel, like the flower.
Yes, that's the one. I'll see you there at 7.
5.
Right. And can I get your car registration number?
Uh-huh.
Have you got a normal one, or is it one of those specially made ones that's a word or a name?
No, I haven't got the money for a personalised plate. It's just 3 letters and 3 numbers. It's HLP 528.
All right, let's check. So please write your answer for number 1 in the chat. So here we had to write down a name, which is really common. And you can see they didn't spell out every letter for us. But they said it's brown. So be careful. They said like the color, but with an E. Okay, so you need to listen carefully. So we know how to spell brown, but they said with an E. Okay, number 2, we needed to write an address. And this time they spelt it out for us. Great Beaton Road with the B. And they said N for November. So sometimes we do that. We give a word that starts with the same letter. Number 3 was a website. So sometimes you may need to write down a website. Okay, just be careful to only write down the word that they ask for in the test. So for this one, if you wrote down the whole thing, www with the .com, you would get the answer wrong. Okay, so be careful to only write down the missing word. So here, if you wrote Andrew Brown on the answer sheet, you would get the answer wrong. Okay, number 4. So again, they didn't spell the whole word, but they said like the flowers, so we know. So you may need to write down names of places. And number 5 is a combination of numbers and letters for a registration. So you have 3 numbers and 3 letters. The letters are HLP, great, and the numbers are 5 to 8. Okay, well done. So this is a variety of different name words and numbers you may need to fill out, names, addresses. You may need to do emails as well. You may need to do websites, names of places, names of countries, so anything like that. And this is pretty common for part 1, filling in these types of names or numbers. Let's have a closer look at numbers. Okay, so like letters, sometimes it can be difficult to hear the difference between one number and another. And some numbers sound similar. So we're going to practice listening to different numbers. So what you need to do is listen and choose the correct number. So you may hear first, so you write down first, or you may hear third, and then you write down third. Okay. So again, write your answers on a piece of paper, either first or third, depending on what you hear, and then we'll check the answers together.
Recording 5. A.
Third.
B.
$10.50.
C.
Sixth.
D.
70.
E.
19.
F.
15.
G.
62.
H.
£110.
I.
31st.
J.
27th.
Okay, let's check. So just write the number in the chat. What did you hear for A? First or third? Great, third is correct. What about B? So this is a price, and there's lots of different ways we can say this. They said $10.50, which is correct. But there's other ways we can say prices. So some people may say $10.5, $10.50, $10.50. The same as this, they may say 10.15, they may say 10.25. So just be aware that there's different ways of saying it. All right, we're going to do them one at a time, please. So C. Six is correct. D. So some people make mistakes with these, telling the difference between teen, the ending teen, and T. Okay, so if you get any of these wrong, please make a note of it, and that's something that you might need to practice. So this one was 7T with a TY. What about E? Great. This one was 19. And F? Fifteen. Great. Okay, so if you got any of these wrong, you may need to practice listening to teen and T. G? 62, correct. H? Good, 110. I? Good, 31st. Okay, and J? 27. Okay, great job. So these are different types of numbers that we might need to write down. So when we have first, second, third, fourth, fifth, we call these ordinal numbers, and often we use them when we write down dates. Okay, so just make sure that you know what we add onto the end of which numbers. If you're not sure, you can practice that. You may need to write down prices. So for prices, just get familiar with the different symbols that we use. So this one for dollars, this one for pounds, this one for euros. So if you don't know that, maybe just write them down. Okay, you may need to use them in the IELTS test. Okay, so dollars, pounds, and euros. You won't get anything else because it's just going to be the common ones we use in English countries. You also may hear similar sounding numbers like we did the teen and the T, or 52, 62. So you need to hear the difference between them. Okay. You may also get measurements or dates. Okay, and we'll have a look at that in a second. So let's move on to this 3.3. So now I'd like you to listen and complete the information. So just with the number that you hear, here you need to write down a price. Here we need to write down a measurement. For number 4, we need to just choose A, B, C. And for number 5, we need to write down a date. Okay, so please listen and write down the correct number. You may hear more than one number. You need, for each question, you need to listen carefully and only write down the correct number.
Recording 6. 1.
I hope you've enjoyed your stay with us.
Yes, it was lovely. But I had to pay £95, which seems a bit expensive. Last time I stayed here, I only paid £80.
Yes, I'm sorry, madam. We had to increase our prices considerably this year. But that is actually a discounted price, as you're a regular guest. It would normally be £105.
Oh.
2.
Now, on Thursday, there will be a special class, which will be given by a wonderful local artist. As this isn't included in your fees, you will need to pay for this on the day. We've kept the costs low. It's only $10 for our regular students here. If you want to bring along anyone else who hasn't studied with us before, the cost for them is $15. We charge them an extra $5 for the use of equipment, which old students have already paid for.
3. Can you tell me how big the garage is? I just want to make sure our cars will fit.
Let me have a look. How big are your cars?
Mine's about 1.5 metres wide, and my wife's is almost the same.
I don't think it's wide enough, I'm afraid. It says here that it's 3.5 metres across, and you need at least a metre between the cars to be able to open the doors.
You're right. What about the height? Mine's a van I use for work, and I carry a lot of equipment on top.
Let me see. It's 2.5 metres, Would that be tall enough?
Not for my big ladders, no. I'd like 3 meters at least.
4.
I'm thinking of taking my children to the Gold Coast in the holidays. Can you tell me how much it would cost on the bus? I don't want to drive all that way.
Right. You'd qualify for a family ticket, which is the cheapest way to do it. It'll be $55 altogether. Normally, a child's fare is $25 and an adult is $45.
Oh, that's a good deal.
5.
I'm trying to organise a party, and I wondered if your hotel had a room we could use.
We do have several function rooms. What date did you have in mind for the party? I'll just warn you, we're already fully booked for most of June. The first available date I have is the 14th of July.
Oh, that's not a problem. It's for my dad's birthday, which isn't until the 1st of August.
That's a Tuesday.
Yes. So I'd like to hold it at the end of July, on the Saturday before.
So that's the 29th?
Yes, that's right.
Recording 7. 1.
Okay, so these were all examples of part 1 questions. So from the first part of the test, where you need to listen to 2 people speaking, and they're often trying to find out information from the other. So as you could hear, there were a few different numbers for each. So for the first one, the options, the numbers that they mentioned were 80, 105, and 95. So only one of these is correct. So please type the correct answer for number 1 in the chat. So only one answer is correct. And the correct answer is 95. So some people have said 105. 105 is the full price, but they said that she qualifies for a discounted price, which is 95. Okay, so you need to listen carefully for the correct options. Okay, so number 2, the options were 10, 15, and 5. Please write the answer in the chat. Note that the question is asking about new students. Great, 15 is correct. Okay, number 3 was a bit tricky. You had to write down the width, so that's how wide it is, and the height, how high it is. So please write down the 2 answers in the chat. And again, we heard quite a lot of different numbers here: 1.5, 1 meters, 3 meters, 3.5, 2.5. All right, so the correct answer for the width is 3.5, which I think most people got. Now the correct answer for the height is 2.5. So 3 is the height that he would prefer, but it's not the actual height, okay? The actual height is 2.5. Okay, 1 is the amount of space that they need between the cars. All right, so they may mention lots of different numbers, but these are the correct ones. Okay, for the next one, just type the number or ABC. Or how much does she pay for the ticket? Okay, the answer is B, 55. Okay, so this was the family ticket price. And the last one, we had to write down a date for the party. There were a few different dates that they mentioned: the 29th of July, the 14th of July, or the 1st of August. Okay, and the correct date is which most of you have written down, the 29th of July. Okay, if you ask for a date, you must write down the number and the month. If you just write down the number, the answer is wrong. If you just write down the month, the answer is wrong. There's a few different ways that we can write down dates, and all of these are correct. So what I've just written, we can also swap it around like the American way and put the month first. We can also leave out the TH and just put 29 July, or the other way around, July 29. All of those are correct options. You can use of, but you need to be careful. We always have a word count. And if you write 20, say July of July. If you write 29th of July, this now makes it 2 words and a number. Okay, so you need to just be careful. Sometimes it gives you a word count, and the word count is 1 word and a number. And in that case, if you write of, you're going to get the answer wrong. If they say 2 words and a number, then it's okay, you can write down of. So I think just to be safe, I would leave this one out and I wouldn't use this, okay? Because it's easy to get it wrong if you didn't check the word count properly, okay? So if I were you, I would just stick to either using these ones or these ones over here. Okay, so let's quickly have a look at measurements. So sometimes you may need to write down a measurement, and you may need to add the measurement symbol as well, like we did with the price. Okay, so you may need to write down an M for meters, MM for millimeters, cm for centimeters. So just think about, do you know these in English? You may need to write down liters as well. So L for liters, ml for milliliters. You may need to write down kgs. We also have T for tons. Okay. I'm not saying that you have to write these down, but you may need to. So just think about, do you know what they are, or do you need to learn them? If it's already here, then you don't need to use it again. You just write down the number. But if they don't give it to you, then you may need to write down the measurement symbol as well. Okay, so that's it for this worksheet. We're going to move on to worksheet 2. So do you remember which sections in the test do we hear a conversation? Can you write the number in the chat? Which 2 sections of the test do we listen to a conversation? Maybe you can take a guess if you can't remember. Okay, we have 1 and 4 and 1 and 3. 1 and 3 are correct. Okay, so number 1 and number 3 are conversations. Number 1, general, and number 3, academic. Okay, and there could be 2 or maybe 3 people speaking. Section 2 and 4 are monologues with 1 person speaking. Okay, so just try and remember that. So what we're going to do for this worksheet is have a look at section 1 and section 3, where we have more than 1 speaker. So if there's more than 1 speaker, you will be able to tell the difference between the voices. Either you will have 1 male and 1 female speaking, or if you have 2 females, then 1 will sound older and 1 will sound younger. Okay, so you'll be able to hear the difference between the 2 speakers' voices. It's important that you listen to both people speaking, because you'll hear answers from both speakers. Okay, so even if it's an interview, you're going to get answers from the interviewer and the interviewee, the person who's being interviewed. So usually for section 1, you will hear 2 people speaking, and normally one person is trying to find out information from another person. Okay, so here's some examples of section 1 speakers. We're going to just do number 3. So I want you to listen. We're listening to an interviewer and a job applicant. So you need to decide what is the difference between their 2 voices. So I want you to write either male or female, and then young or old. Okay, so do you think the interviewer is male or female? Are they young or old? Job applicant, male or female, young or old? So that's what you're going to write in this box over here. Now, I also want you to listen and complete this sentence. So the applicant would like to know about what? Okay, so we're not doing these, just number 3. So write down male, female, young, old, and then complete this sentence over here.
Recording 8. 1.
Great. I'll just get a few personal details from you.
3.
Well, I don't think I have any more questions. Is there anything you'd like to ask me about the job?
Yes, I was wondering if it involves a lot of travel and what the working hours are.
I'll just get a few personal details from
3.
Well, I don't think I have any more questions. Is there anything you'd like to ask me about the job?
Yes, I was wondering if it involves a lot of travel and what the working hours are.
Okay, so first let's think about their description, the interviewer. Are they male or female? Are they younger or older? Okay, they're definitely female. I think she sounded younger than the job applicant, but she wasn't a young female. She is probably middle-aged. Okay, so if you wrote younger or older, that's fine. What about the job applicant? Were they male or female, young or old? They were definitely male, okay? They weren't a young male. It was, again, like a middle-aged male. I think he sounded older than the female, but if he sounded younger to you, that's fine. The main difference is their gender. Okay, then let's complete this here. So what was the job applicant trying to find out? 2 things. Try and be specific, please. What about the job? Good. Traveling was one of the things he wanted to know about. And what was the other? Travel and the working hours. Okay, great. So he was asking her these 2 things. We're going to listen to them again. And now I want you to think about which nationality do you think the job applicant is? So for IELTS listening, you're going to hear different English accents. These could be British, American, Canadian, Australian, New Zealand accents. So let's have a look. We're going to listen again to the job applicant, and I want you to guess what country you think he's from. If you're not sure, just take a guess.
Have any more questions? Is there anything you'd like to ask me about the job?
Yes, I was wondering if it involves a lot of travel and what the working hours are.
Okay, so take a guess. What country do you think the job applicant is from? From this list.
I was wondering if it involves a lot of travel and what the working hours are.
Obviously, you don't have to write down what nationalities they're from in the test. We're just doing it for fun to see if you know. Okay, so we have lots of different options: British, Australian, Canadian, New Zealand. We've got all the options. This is an Australian accent. If you didn't recognize it, that's fine. So obviously just some of his pronunciation would be different from a British or an American accent. Okay, so you may hear any of these accents. If you've never heard them before, like maybe you've never heard a New Zealand accent or a Canadian accent, I'd recommend that you just go online and look for these accents. Maybe you try find some podcasts or some YouTube channels. You can just type in New Zealand accent, just so that you're familiar with them and you've heard them at least once, okay? Because some of the pronunciation is different, so it may be harder for you to recognize the letters or some of the pronunciation that they're using. Okay, so please, if you don't know them, go look them up online. You can look for some TED Talks by people from these countries as well. You don't have to worry about it too much because they're going to be using what we call in English the standard accent. So obviously, there's many different accents from each country, especially a country like England. England, they have hundreds of different kinds of accents, and the same with America. The accent in the South is different from the accent in New York, the accent in San Francisco. Okay, you're not going to be hearing this variety of accents from each country. You're just going to hear the standard accent. For example, I'm from South Africa, which has lots of different accents, but I have a standard South African accent. Okay, and usually the teachers that you have standard accents from countries. So for the IELTS test, you will hear different accents, but each one will be the standard accent, which means they're quite easy to understand. They're not very strong accents. Okay, they have standard pronunciation. Also, the speakers won't speak very quickly. Some accents are very fast. Okay, but in the IELTS, because you only listen once, they won't speak quickly. All right. So it's not something that you need to worry about, but it is something that you can go and look up. Okay, just so that you've listened to these accents at least 2 or 3 times before you do the test. Okay, but remember, you can look for standard accent as well, New Zealand or Canadian standard accent online. All right, so remember I said earlier, you may hear like an interview or 2 people speaking. You need to listen to both people because you'll hear answers from both people. So again, we're just going to do number 3. We're going to listen to the same interviewer and the job applicant from Australia. And this time we're going to answer the question. Okay, which country has he worked in the most? Just write down one word and what department would the applicant like to work in. So fill in one word for each answer. And I also want you to decide who gave you that answer. Did you get the country name from the interviewer, or did the job applicant say the name? Or did they both say it? Okay. For the second one as well, did the interviewer give us the department? Did the job applicant say the department name? Okay, so write down one word for each, and then also write down who gave us the answer.
Recording 9.
You need to go there in the morning.
I was born here in England.
In the morning for breakfast.
3.
Now, according to your CV, you've lived and worked in a few different countries, haven't you?
That's right. I was born here in England and my family emigrated to Australia when I was very young.
But your longest employment so far was in America, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. I moved there once I graduated and worked for 5 years before coming back to England in January.
Right. And you've worked briefly in accounts, but in sales mostly. Is that the area you're still interested in working in? We have a very strong sales department.
Actually, I'm hoping to move into the area of marketing. I've always been interested in it, and it was my major at university.
I see. Well, with your references, I'm sure we can discuss it.
All right, what's the answer for the first question? Great, America. And who gave us this answer? The interviewer or the job applicant? Who said the word America? Okay, it was the interviewer. So I'm talking about who said the actual word. Did they both say it? In this case, it was just the interviewer. Okay, and number 2, answer please. So they mentioned a few different departments, sales, accounts, and marketing. The one that he wants to work in is marketing. Great, and who gave us this answer? Good, the job applicant. Okay, so as you can see, you hear answers from both people. The job. All right, let's move on. So when you listen to 2 people speaking, obviously they are speaking for a certain reason. So they speak with a purpose in mind, and therefore we say that their language has function. Okay, so we use different words, different language for different functions. Okay, for example, the words I'm sorry have the function to apologize. Okay, so being able to recognize what the function is for different words will help us answer questions. So if you hear the words I'm sorry, you know that the speaker is apologizing. So here, number 1 to 10, we have a list of sentences. I want you to have a look at the words in blue, and we're going to match the words to their different functions. Okay, for example, what do we use what about for? Do we use it for agreeing, for showing anger, and so on? So we're going to listen to them and you're going to match them. But first, let's just have a look at some. What about C, if we reject an idea? What does reject mean? So what does it mean to reject something? Okay, great. So it means to not accept it, to say no. Not really the same as not agree, but not accept would be correct. Okay, so for example, if you reject a job offer, you've said, no, I don't want that job. Okay, I have a better offer. What about confirming? If I call you to confirm something, what am I doing? So here's an example. I made some plans with my friend this weekend. And I just want to call them to check the time. So I would say, hi, Susan, what time are we going to the movies on Saturday? Is it 7:30? And she would say, yeah, 7:30. Okay, great. So I have a couple words here. I would say we use confirming is to check or to clarify. So it's not really agree or accept, it's to check that that the information that you have is correct or to clarify. Okay, so just remember that. All right, so now we're going to listen to the 7 audios. And as you listen, I want you to match the functions to the sentences. So you can just write the number, like number 1. What about? Maybe that matches with E, confirming. Okay, so just write that on your piece of paper and then we'll check together.
Recording 10. 1.
What about getting her a new bike?
2.
That's right. We arrive on the 22nd of July.
3.
That sounds great. Let's do that.
4.
I don't think I'd enjoy that one.
5.
You said you'd prefer to have the party outside, is that right?
6.
Actually, it's just gone up to $250.
7.
Now, what about accommodation? Where would you like to stay?
Record.
All right, let's check. So which one matches with number 1? Just type the letter only, please. So what do we use what about for? Great, D for suggestions, well done. Next one, number 2. Yeah, so this one is E, confirming. If you said G, then that's fine as well. What about number 3? A, correct, agreeing. Number 4. Good. C, disagreeing. I wouldn't say showing anger. He's not really angry. He's just disagreeing. You can disagree politely. Number 5. Okay, so this one is G, checking. So it's a little bit different. And number 6. Is B, correcting. Okay, so the information that she says was wrong, and he said actually and gave her the correct answer. And number 7. Now, what about accommodation? So maybe we're talking about travel, and now I say, and what about accommodation? Great, so this is F, moving on to a new topic. Okay, so knowing what this language means often helps us to answer the question. You may be asked, what do the 2 people agree about? You may be asked how they feel about something. You may be asked, I don't know, what idea they've rejected, what suggestions they made. Number 7 is also quite important. So often when a speaker moves on to a new topic, they're also often moving on to a new question. Okay, so maybe the first question was about travel and the next question is about accommodation. So when we hear this, we may need to move to the next question on the question paper. Okay, so understanding this language helps us to answer questions. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. Once we finish this, we'll have a break for 15 minutes. So here we have 2 multiple choice questions. one of them from section 1, general, and one of them from section 3, academic. Okay, so we have 2 questions for each, and we need to listen and choose the correct option, A, B, and C. So for the first one, you have to listen for what do they decide to prepare for the party. The second one is what will they do next? Okay, again, you're listening for what do the students decide, and then what will they do next? Okay, so please write the answers on your piece of paper. Just write down the correct option A, B, or C. Someone's asked, will you drop the points? I'm not sure what you mean by the points, but if you mean the worksheets, they're all in the LMS. So they're already there. You can check in the flipped class section. So in the flipped class, you have all the worksheets and some extra stuff as well for you to download. I'll show you where to find that at the end of the lesson. Okay, so please just quickly read it. I'll give you 30 seconds, read the questions, and then we're going to play the audio. So just write down the correct option, A, B, C.
Recording 11. Listening section 1.
Hi, Sam. We'd better start planning the party. It's in less than 2 weeks, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess it is. There isn't much to do, is there?
Well, we need to sort out food for a start.
Why don't we just order some pizzas?
But we always do that. Let's do something a bit different. Besides, it's pretty expensive.
What about a barbecue then? Or we could just do hot dogs?
Too much preparation involved. There are a lot coming, you know.
Sandwiches then. That's easy enough.
Sandwiches? That's a good idea. Hang on. That would be even more preparation than the barbecue. Better go back to the original idea, I suppose.
Pizzas it is then.
Now, we also need to think about music and invitations.
Well, we don't need to buy invitations. I think we should just do them on the computer and keep costs down.
Good idea. And what about music?
We can just use the same stuff we had last time. It's fine.
OK. Well, if we don't let people know soon, there won't be anyone there. So let's make that our priority. Have you got your laptop?
Yeah. Told you there wasn't much to do.
Okay, let's check the answers for number 1 before we listen to section 3. So the first one is the answer A, B, or C. So you can see that they mentioned all of them, but only one option is correct. So you need to listen carefully. Sometimes they say something, they say no, and then at the end they say yes again. So the correct answer is A, pizza. Number 2, what are they going to do next? Quite a lot of people said B. So they said that they're going to use the music from last year. So the answer is not B, but C. They're going to sort out invitations. So they may not say this exactly. They may use other words. The word priority gave us a clue. So they said, we're going to make that our priority. If something is a priority, it means it's important and we need to do it next. Okay, we need to do it before other things. Okay, now let's do number 3.
Listening section 3.
Hi, Julie. Have you got time to plan our project?
Sure. I've got a few minutes. We need to choose a topic based on the theme of pollution, don't we?
That's right. Have you got any preferences?
Well, I did a huge assignment on water pollution last year, so we could just do that.
Actually, the tutor did make a point of saying not to use last year's materials, so we'd better not.
It's probably a bit out of date now anyway. Also, it focused specifically on industry, and I think we're supposed to take a broad view.
That's right. We could look at something totally different, like the effects of fumes on air quality.
Good idea. And we could make sure we include all of the sources, like traffic and factories.
So, what else do we need to do? Shall we go to the library and look for resources?
Actually, I think we'd be better off looking online. The good resources in the library are often all out at this time of the year. Anyway, before we notify the tutor which topic we've chosen, I think we need to ask the others what they're doing.
You're right. We need to make sure we're not all doing the same thing. Let's ask them this afternoon in the tutorial.
Great idea.
All right, let's check. So the answer for number 3. Okay, so water pollution, A, is what they did last year. And C is also something that they did in last year's project. So the correct answer is B. Now, they didn't say air pollution, but they used the word air quality. So maybe that's why you didn't get the answer. So they don't always say exactly the same words in the question. They use what we call paraphrase. Okay, meaning different words, but with a similar meaning. So air quality is a paraphrase for air pollution. Okay, what about number 4? What are they doing next? Okay, C is correct. So they said before they speak to the tutor, meaning their teacher, their lecturer, they're going to ask the other students. Okay, great. So let's stop there and have a break for about 12 minutes. So we'll come back at 9:45 and carry on. Okay, if you have any questions in the meantime, type them in the chat. I'll answer them when we come back. About the word count. So for listening and for reading, the word count is really important. So for any task where you need to write down a word, you get given a word count. And this is always different depending on what task you're doing. So here's the word count. This is a sentence completion task. So you have a sentence, you need to fill in the missing word in the middle. And the word count for this is no more than one word and or a number. So that means that in this space, you can write down one word and it would be correct. You can write down one word and a number and it would be correct, or you can write down just a number. If you write down 2 words, incorrect. If you write down 2 numbers, incorrect as well. Let's have a look at some different options. So have a look over here. These are some examples of one word and or a number. The 16th of June, that's considered as one word and a number. So this is what I'm talking about, that if we write of, we have now written 2 words. So that would be incorrect. 3 books, this is actually correct because 3 is a number and books is a word. Okay, so you can write the number as a word or you can write it as a number, a figure, like number 3. Both are correct. This is also a correct answer, 24 cats, because 24 is not 2 numbers, it's 1 number. Okay, and cats is 1 word. So 2 numbers and a word. We can also just have a number, for example, $450.5. This is correct. This is considered 1 number. A price is 1 number. Okay, this is not 5 numbers, it's 1. So let's do this task over here. So you're going to listen and complete this sentence with 1 word and or a number.
Recording 12.
Hi, I'm interested in buying a ticket for the Small Business Expo next week, but I'm not sure it will be useful for me.
Well, this year we wanted to focus on computer skills. So, as well as representatives from 400 small businesses, we've invited over 250 specialists in that area.
Oh, well, that should be interesting.
All right, so what's the missing word? Please write your answer in the chat. Okay, good. 250 is correct. There is also a word that we could add. So I'm going to play the audio again, and I want you to think of what word could I add after 250.
Recording 12.
Hi, I'm interested in buying a ticket for the Small Business Expo next week, but I'm not sure it will be useful for me.
Well, this year we wanted to focus on computer skills. So, as well as representatives from 400 small businesses, we've invited over 250 specialists in that area.
Oh, well, that should be interesting.
Okay, so what word could I add after 250 before the word experts? Now, quite a lot of people are saying specialist. The word specialist is a synonym for the word expert. So I wouldn't say specialists, experts, okay? Because then I'm just saying the same thing twice. They're not specialist experts because an expert is a specialist. So we're looking for what kind of experts are they? What do they specialize in? And some people have the answer. It's computer. Okay, so the kind of experts that they are computer experts. Okay, so these are the answers. 250 would be correct. But if you wrote 250 computer, that would also be correct. If you just wrote computer, the answer is wrong because it says more than. So now we have to have a number. We can have the number and the word. For this sentence, if you only write the word, it doesn't make sense. Okay, so your sentence needs to make grammatical sense as well. Let's have a list here, these possible answers, and we're going to decide which ones are correct and which ones are not. So the first one here, just type in the chat box, yes or no. Is this answer a correct answer? 250 computer. Is this a correct answer? Could I write this in the box and get a mark? The answer is no, but I would like you to tell me why. So if you said no, why is it incorrect? So it's not incorrect because it's more than one word. Remember I said here, like 24 is one number. So 250 is also one number. Okay, so that's fine. We have one number and one word. That's not why it's incorrect. It's incorrect because of the spelling. Okay, we don't say 50, we say 50. All right, so remember, if your spelling's incorrect, the answer's incorrect. Okay, what about this one? Correct, yes or no? All right, this one is correct. Good, let's move on to the next one and I'll answer the question in the chat box with the next one. Is this 250 computers correct, yes or no? So the spelling is correct now. So this is no, and can you tell me why it's incorrect? So if you said no, why did you say no? It's not because it's more than two words, than one word, because we said this is one number. It's because of the S. So there should not be an S. And let's think about why. The word computer here, is it a noun or is it an adjective? So in this sentence, is it a noun or an adjective? It's an adjective. And do we usually put S on the ends of adjectives? No. Okay. It's not, it's an adjective for experts. Experts has an S because it's plural, experts. But computer should not have an S. Okay. It's an adjective. We don't put S's on the ends of adjectives. They can't be plural. Okay, next one. Correct, yes or no? Yeah, no, why not? Yes, because of the word over. So for two reasons. Because we have more than. We wouldn't say more than over. But it's also incorrect because that would make it two words and we can only have one word, which is computer. Okay, the next one, 250 expert, computer experts, correct, yes or no? No, why not? Yep, we don't use experts because it makes it two words and we can only have one word. Also, they already have the word experts here, so please be careful of that. If the word is there, you don't write it again. If you do, you're going to get the answer wrong. So this is technically a correct answer, but IELTS it's easy to get answers wrong for small mistakes. So please make sure you don't make these mistakes. If it's there, you don't write it again. Okay, next one, over 250 experts. Correct, yes or no? Yeah, no, and we've discussed both of these already. It's two words, and also we have the word over, we have the word experts, we don't write it again. Next one, 250 computer. Correct, yes or no? Yes, well done. And the next one, 250. This one is also correct. Okay, because it says and or, which means we can just put a number here. Okay, because just a number makes sense grammatically. All right. So as I said before, you can put the words and it is correct, but I would advise you not to do it because you stand the chance of making a spelling mistake. Okay, so if I were you, I would just go ahead and use numbers for numbers. Okay, we're going to move on to the next worksheet. And we're going to be discussing two really important things with IELTS listening that I've mentioned briefly already, which are distractors and paraphrases. And these are ways in which it'll help you get the correct answer, but they're also there to confuse you a bit and make it easy to get the wrong answer. So paraphrase I mentioned just now, it's when we use synonyms or different words but with the same meaning. Distractors are when we talk about the incorrect answers. So remember when we looked at numbers, for some of the questions, there were 3 different numbers that they mentioned, but only one number was correct. So let's start with distractors. So distractors are the incorrect answers to a question. So usually, especially for multiple choice, you may hear 2 possible potential answers to each question. Like you may hear 2 or 3 different numbers and you need a number, but only one of them is actually correct. So the word distractor comes from the word distract, okay? The verb distract, meaning to take your attention away from what is correct, to confuse you. So they're there specifically for that reason, to be confusing, so that you need to listen carefully to hear which one is actually correct. Okay, so what we're going to do first is answer these questions. Don't worry about this for now. Just have a look at the questions. So for each question, write down one word and or a number. So for this one, you're going to write down a date, a day, what they want to do the project on, and some problems that they mention. Okay, so just listen and complete the questions with one word and or a number. So these are from each section of the test, general, academic.
Recording 13. 1.
Right, so you need to book some flights, is that right?
Yes, for me and my family. We're going to Scotland for my sister's wedding.
Oh, lovely. When's the wedding?
It's on the 21st of July.
That should be wonderful. But I assume you'll want to fly in earlier. What about the 20th or even the 19th?
It will have to be the 18th. I've actually got to attend a special dinner on the 19th.
2.
Welcome aboard, everyone. I hope you'll enjoy your stay with us and get a lovely glimpse of country life. We're going to a wonderful market on Tuesday morning. I'm sure you'll love that with all the local farm produce on sale. Then on the Wednesday, you'll get to see where all that lovely produce comes from, as John Smith, a local farmer, has invited us to see him at work. On Thursday, you'll have a day to relax before we leave on Friday.
3.
So, what topic are we going to choose for our project? It's due in 3 weeks.
I know. It's not a lot of time. I was going to suggest we do one on the environment.
But that's so broad a topic. We should try to narrow it down. What about recycling?
That's a good idea. There's a lot of information, and I think the other groups are concentrating on pollution, so this would be nice and different.
4.
We encountered quite a few problems during our research. Firstly, the weather was horrendous and made our work conditions very difficult indeed. Luckily, we had the right equipment to deal with that, and could carry on regardless. Unfortunately, though, in spite of having so many volunteers, we did run out of funds halfway through the project, so we were forced to postpone the second half of our trip.
All right, let's check the answers. Number 1, we need a date. Remember, you must have a month and a day to get the correct answer. So they mentioned 4 different numbers, and the correct answer is the 18th of July. Okay, but we can't write of for this one, so either 18th or 18 July, or July 18, the other way is fine as well. If you got it wrong, we're going to listen again for the distractors, and then you can think about why the answer that you wrote down is incorrect. Number 2, we need a day. A day that they're going to visit the farm, and the day is Wednesday. Right, so visiting the farm was important here. Okay. Number 3, the topic of their project. Great, recycling. Okay, and last one, number 4, the problems, a lack of. Okay, everyone says fund, but what we actually need for this answer is funds with an S. Now, this is a common mistake that people make for IELTS listening, and it's an easy way to lose marks. You need to listen carefully for if there is an S on the end of a word or not. If they say it with an S in the audio, you must write it with an S in the answer sheet. So if you just wrote fund, the answer would be wrong. Okay. Also, in English, when we talk about things in general, we always use a plural noun. So a lack of funds, not just one fund, but many funds. It may be confusing because there is an A here, but it's for the phrase a lack of, which is not talking about A for a singular noun. So it's something that you need to think about when you're doing these tasks and practice tests and practice listening for if there is an S on the end of a word or not. Usually you can check it with the grammar, but if that's tricky, like in this case, you need to practice listening for plurals. All right, we're going to listen one more time, and this time I want you to write down all the incorrect answers. So for number 1, it would be all the other dates that they mention, especially if you got any of these wrong. Okay, listen for why you got it wrong. So for example, for this, one of the other dates was the 19th. Okay, so we're going to listen and write down all the distractors for these answers.
Recording 13. 1.
Right, so you need to book some flights, is that right?
Yes, for me and my family. We're going to Scotland for my sister's wedding.
Oh, lovely. When's the wedding?
It's on the 21st of July.
That should be wonderful. But I assume you'll want to fly in earlier. What about the 20th, or even the 19th?
It will have to be the 18th. I've actually got to attend a special dinner on the 19th.
2.
Welcome aboard, everyone. I hope you'll enjoy your stay with us and get a lovely glimpse of country life. We're going to a wonderful market on Tuesday morning. I'm sure you'll love that with all the local farm produce on sale. Then, on the Wednesday, you'll get to see where all that lovely produce comes from, as John Smith, a local farmer, has invited us to see him at work. On Thursday, you'll have a day to relax before we leave on Friday.
3.
So, what topic are we going to choose for our project? It's due in 3 weeks.
I know. It's not a lot of time. I was going to suggest we do one on the environment.
But that's so broad a topic. We should try to narrow it down. What about recycling?
That's a good idea. There's a lot of information, and I think the other groups are concentrating on pollution, so this would be nice and different.
4.
We encountered quite a few problems during our research. Firstly, the weather was horrendous and made our work conditions very difficult indeed. Luckily, we had the right equipment to deal with that and could carry on regardless. Unfortunately, though, in spite of having so many volunteers, we did run out of funds halfway through the project, so we were forced to postpone the second half of our trip.
Okay, let's check the distractors. So please write in the chat box the distractors for number 1. So the 19th, he said that they had a special dinner. So that's not the answer. The 20th was one. What else? Yeah, and the 21st. Okay, the 21st was the day of the wedding. Okay, let's go to the next one. What days were distractors? We have 3 days. Great. The first one being Tuesday. So Tuesday was the day they went to the market. Thursday was the day to relax. And the last one, Friday, was the day they were going to leave. Okay. What other topics did they talk about? Good. Environment. Okay. And the other was pollution. So pollution were what the other groups were doing. Okay. So for a question like this, where they ask for problems, often the distractors were the things that weren't problems. If they asking for advantages, the distractors could be the disadvantages. So what were things that weren't problems? There were 2. Great. So first of all, it was the equipment. So that was not a problem. And the second one was the volunteers. So they had enough volunteers. Okay. So distractors can be other days, other topics, or it could be the opposite, meaning if we're talking about advantages, the distractor could be the disadvantages, and so on. Okay. So please know that for basically every single question in the IELTS listening, you're always going to have distractors, incorrect answers. So you need to be aware of that so that you listen carefully for which one is correct. Right, let's move on to paraphrase, which is also really important. So paraphrase is when we use a synonym, which is a word with a similar meaning, or a phrase, meaning more than one word, different words, but with a similar meaning. So we use paraphrase in the IELTS listening, meaning that the words in the question paper are different from the words in the dialogue, the words in the audio track. Okay, So the words that you read in the question may not be the words that you actually hear. They're going to be a paraphrase, different words but with a similar meaning. And often they do this by using synonyms. So here we have a list of words, number 1 to 8, and you need to match them with their synonym. I've written a few definitions over here that may help you to match the words. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Just write down the number and the matching letter on a piece of paper, and then we'll check the answers together. So you're matching the word with its synonym, meaning a similar meaning. All right, let's match. Please type the answer for number 1 in the chat. I'll just do them one at a time. D, correct. Number 2. E, great. Number 3. A, correct. Number 4. F, good. Number 5, solution. H, number 6, to transport. B, great. Number 7. Number 7 is C, and then the last one, number 8, got to be G, right? Okay, well done. So to transport is a verb. What's the noun form? What's the noun form of transport? Good, transportation. Okay, so that's another way to paraphrase, is by using a different form of the word. So you may have the word transport in your question and the word transportation in the audio track. All right, let's move on. So we're going to do another multiple choice from each section of the test. Okay, so first we're going to answer the question, choose the correct answer, and then we're going to listen again for the paraphrase. So don't do this now. We're just going to listen and answer the question. So what do they decide to do first? What change will they make in the garden? What did the students agree to do with the project? And what are the scientists studying? Okay, So underlining keywords in the question is also helpful. All right, so let's listen, just write down the number and the correct answer, A, B, or C. So remember, the words here in the question and the options might be different from the words in the audio track.
Recording 14. 1.
We really need to organise our trip, you know.
I know. I was thinking the same. We need to arrange accommodation and flights.
And we'll need transport while we're there. We could hire a car.
My dad said we could borrow his.
Well, that's one less thing to worry about.
I'm a bit worried that hotels will all get booked up.
OK, let's sort that out straight away.
Yes. Then I can contact the travel agent and book our flights in the morning.
Great!
2.
I just wanted to tell you about some of the recent changes we've made to the garden at the back of the complex, which we all have access to. As you know, there are some attractive and well-established plants in there, and we didn't want to take any of these out. But many of these are struggling in the harsh sun, which falls directly on that area. To solve this, we're going to plant trees along the western edge of the garden, just near the pond. This should also become a very pleasant place to sit and watch the ducks in the water.
3.
It's nearly there. I think we've found plenty of information.
Yes, lots. In fact, do you think we need to reduce any of it?
Not at all. In fact, I was thinking we could try and include some of those nice graphics you found.
OK. It would certainly make it look a bit more interesting.
4.
Studying ice cores in the South Pole can tell us a lot about the past climate, which, in turn, can help us understand how today's climate is changing. My particular area of study is snow. While we scientists understand the process of how snow is created, very little is known about how snow interacts with the atmosphere and influences our weather patterns. One of the things we're trying to do is to link what we already know about meteorology and clouds and determine the impact that snow has on that.
Okay, let's check the answers. Number 1, A, B, C in the chat box. Okay, the answer is A. So if you said B, they're going to do tomorrow. Okay, but first they're going to find a place to stay. Number 2. The answer again here is A. If you said B, this is they don't want to do this. Okay, they don't want to remove the plants. Instead, they're going to plant some trees, improve the shade. If you said C, they already have a water feature. They said you can sit and enjoy the ducks by the pond, meaning they already have a pond. They're not going to add another one. Number 3. Good, C is correct. Number 4. So this is part 4, meaning it's the hardest part. So the language is a bit more complex, the topic a bit more complex. The correct answer here is B, the effect that snow has on our climate. C is the opposite of the answer. So they don't want to know the effect that clouds have on snow, but the effect that snow has on the weather or the climate. All right, we're going to listen one more time, and now we're going to write down some synonyms or paraphrases. So have a look at the words that are underlined, a place to stay, and write down any words they used in the audio that have a similar meaning. For example, the word hotel. Okay, so please listen. We're going to go through them one at a time. So write down any paraphrases you hear for the underlined words.
Recording 14. 1.
We really need to organise our trip, you know.
I know. I was thinking the same. We need to arrange accommodation and flights.
And we'll need transport while we're there. We could hire a car.
My dad said we could borrow his.
Well, that's one less thing to worry about.
I'm a bit worried that hotels will all get booked up.
OK, let's sort that out straight away.
Yes. Then I can contact the travel agent and book our flights in the morning.
Great.
All right, let's check. So what is the other paraphrase for a place to stay? Please write in the chat. Great, accommodation. Okay, what about airfare? Okay, here the answer is flights. Travel agent isn't a paraphrase for airfare. Okay, it's on a similar topic, but the words aren't paraphrases or synonyms. Last one, car hire, or maybe just the word car. Great, transport. Okay, so again, they're not exactly the same meaning, but a similar meaning. Great, let's do number 2.
2.
I just wanted to tell you about some of the recent changes we've made to the garden at the back of the complex, which we all have access to. As you know, there are some attractive and well-established plants in there, and we didn't want to take any of these out. But many of these are struggling in the harsh sun, which falls directly on that area. To solve this, we're going to plant trees along the western edge of the garden, just near the pond. This should also become a very pleasant place to sit and watch the ducks in the water.
Okay, so paraphrase for improve the shade. Great, plant trees. Next one, remove. Good, take out. And the last one, water feature. Great, this is the pond. Well done. Okay, we're just going to do one more, number 3.
3.
It's nearly there. I think we've found plenty of information.
Yes, lots. In fact, do you think we need to reduce any of it?
Not at all. In fact, I was thinking we could try and include some of those nice graphics you found.
OK. It would certainly make it look a bit more interesting.
4.
Okay, research a Great. Just the word information is fine. The word information is a synonym for research. B, make some cuts. Great, reduce. And the last one, add and visual effects. So the synonym for add is include, and visual effects is graphics. Okay, great job, well done. Let's stop with paraphrase there. So as you can see, this is multiple choice. So each option, A, B, and C, is mentioned. They use paraphrases, but they do mention them in order, which means first you'll hear about A, then B, and then C. So that does make it a little bit easier to answer. We're going to move on to a different kind of task now, which is selecting from a list, or what we call a matching task. So for these types of tasks, sorry, this is not matching, it's just a different kind of multiple choice. So we call it selecting from a list. So for this type of multiple choice, we have a question and you need to choose 2 or more answers from a list of options. So you need to read the question carefully to see how many you need to choose. So for this, we need to select 2 answers from this list of options. Okay. The trick with these is that the options are not in order. Meaning that you're not going to hear them talk about A, whether it's user-friendly first, and then if it's expensive, and then photographs, and so on. So these are not in order. They can discuss it in any order, in a random order, which means first they might speak about whether it can take pictures, then they might speak about the size, then is it user-friendly, and so on. So that makes it a little bit harder to get the correct answer. So you need to listen carefully and think about any paraphrases that they may use. So before we answer the question, we're just going to listen and put them in the order that we hear them. So the first one they've done for us. Okay, so first they mention E, the size. So next to E, we put a number 1. Okay, so we're going to listen to the audio and I want you to just put these in order. So if you want, you can put E at the top, and then if B comes next, and so on. So put them in the order that you hear them.
Recording 15.
In today's show, I'm going to be looking at what's new in technology this week. And I'd like to start by looking at the much-awaited OP56 mobile phone from technology giants Optiware. It has some amazing features. The first thing you notice is how much slimmer and lighter it is compared to the heavier, older models. It's incredible considering that they have actually increased the screen size on this one, though it still fits neatly into your pocket. They've also improved the camera, and you'll find you can take much better quality photos on this model. This has an impact on the battery though, as it takes a lot of power, and I found it didn't run for very long before needing to be recharged. Despite all its amazing features, it's extremely easy to use. But I do have to say that it is overpriced and will be beyond the budget of most people shopping for a new phone.
Recording 16.
Right, let's put them in order. So first is E. What did we hear next? Please write the letter in the chat. Great, next they mentioned C. Okay, what came next? Good. D. Next. A. Okay, and the last one obviously has to be B. Okay, so as you can see, they're talked about in a random order. Think about paraphrase quickly. Can you remember what paraphrase did they use for user-friendly? Can anyone remember what did they use for user-friendly? Great, they said easy to use. What about the next one? Very expensive. What paraphrase did they use there? Great. Overpriced with a D on the end. Okay. Or over the budget is also a paraphrase. Okay. So as you can see, they may use paraphrases as well. Beyond the budget. Good. Okay, so let's actually go and answer the question now. So remember, you need to choose two options from the list. What are the two disadvantages of the mobile phone? Okay, so write down two answers in the chat.
Recording 15.
In today's show, I'm going to be looking at what's new in technology this week. And I'd like to start by looking at the much-awaited OP56 mobile phone from technology giants Optiware. It has some amazing features. The first thing you notice is how much slimmer and lighter it is compared to the heavier, older models. It's incredible considering that they have actually increased the screen size on this one, though it still fits neatly into your pocket. They've also improved the camera, and you'll find you can take much better quality photos on this model. This has an impact on the battery though, as it takes a lot of power, and I found it didn't run for very long before needing to be recharged. Despite all its amazing features, it's extremely easy to use, but I do have to say that it is overpriced and will be beyond the budget of most people shopping for a new phone.
Great, so please write the two disadvantages in the chat. Okay, good. Looks like everyone's got the correct answers. So it's B, it's expensive, and D, it has a short battery life. Okay, good job. So for these, just make sure that you carefully look at how many options you need to choose from the list. It won't always be two, it could be more than two as well. Okay, that's it for this worksheet. We're going to move on to a different kind of task. And this is quite common for part 2, section 2, but you can get it in other sections of the test as well. And that's labeling a map. So for labeling a map, often we need to look at maps of places, and we may need to follow directions for this type of task as well. So on the map, you may see pictures, and this is what we call landmarks or features. So we use these, they're easy to recognize, and often we use them to follow directions. So let's quickly have a look at what we call these. So please write the name of A in the chat. So a lot of people are saying elevator, and I understand why you're saying that, but it's actually not the correct answer. So these are the moving stairs. We do use them to get us from one floor to another floor, but it's not an elevator. They're called escalator. Okay, so if you don't know this, please write it down. So this is different from an elevator. An elevator is the box, okay, that we stand inside and it moves us from one level to another level. We also call this a lift in the UK. So this is not the same as an escalator. Okay, so please write that down if you don't know it. It's a common mistake. So the moving stairs are escalators. All right, what about B? Often we find these at parks. Sometimes people have them in their gardens. And it's a fountain. We can say water fountain, but just fountain is fine as well. C. You can't really see the size of this in this picture. So if you wrote mountain, that's okay. But this is actually a hill. So a hill is like a mountain, but smaller. D. So these can either be in the ground or we can have them up in a bowl. And it's a pond, great. E. So we use this as singular, it's a traffic light. So this can either be a traffic light, but because there's three, sometimes we just use the plural and we say traffic lights. And number, the last one, F. There's a few different words for this. The one that you've learned might be what they use in the UK. Great, a roundabout. But there are some different words for this that you might hear. So can anyone think of what else we could call this? So roundabout is what they generally use in the UK. But I think in America, they don't really use the word roundabout. They say something else. Something circle. A what circle? Anybody know? A what circle? So we use these when we don't have traffic lights, and they help us to know which person is turning at which time. So we call it a traffic circle. So please write this down if you don't know. In some countries, they also call it a turning circle. So either one of these would be correct, traffic circle or a turning circle. You may hear it, so please write it down. All right, so let's move on to a map task. So first of all, we have a multiple choice map task from the 4 different sections of the test. And before you listen to the audio, remember you always have some time to read the question. So for a map task, you should use this time to study the map. Look at all the different things you can see, the different words or the different pictures, and just get an idea of what is on the map and what the map is of. So the first thing you can do is think about the landmarks that you can see. So these may be words like lift or toilet. Entrance is also really important. So always think about, is there an entrance? Where is it? Because often the speaker will start at the entrance and then they'll describe what they can see. Okay, So they'll talk about the plan. They'll start at the entrance. So if you can find the entrance, it'll help you to follow the directions. Let's have a look at the next one. What landmarks or features can you see here? So look for pictures or words. So we can see there's an entrance. What else can we see? Good, a pond. What else? So look for pictures as well. Tree. Okay, the whole place is of a garden, a bench, or a picnic table. Great, okay, there's also a bench by the tree. This round part here is often where we have maybe the center of a garden. Sometimes there's buildings around it. We call this a courtyard. So a courtyard is where there's, sometimes it's circular, sometimes square, it's concrete, and it can be usually in the middle of a place of a garden, or maybe it's surrounded by buildings. We call it a courtyard. Okay, let's go to number 3. What can you see? Okay, be careful, you can't actually see a bridge. We're just talking about a bridge, but we can see roads or a road. We may use the word highway or motorway if it's a large national road. Two-way road, great. What's the blue thing? Okay, good. Some people said direction. Great, so north, east, west, south. We also call this a compass or cardinal directions. So please know what these are: north, west, east, south. If you can see it here, it means they're going to be talking about these directions. Okay, there's one more thing we can see. What is this blue thing that is underneath the road? It's a stream or a river. Okay, so when we build roads, it's usually often because we want to build them over a river. Okay, number 4, what can we see? A pond, good. Bushes. And a tree. Okay, great. So when you have time, you can actually write words on the map. And that'll help you to listen for things that are being mentioned. Okay, so we're gonna do these 4 questions. So you have the question and choose the correct answer, A, B, or C for each one. So where is the gift shop? Where can you buy stamps? What is the location of the new bridge? And where is the ideal habitat for the Traviston frog? So the habitat is the place where the animal naturally lives. Okay, so let's listen. Please write down ABC for each question.
Recording 16. 1.
Excuse me, can you tell me where the gift shop is?
Yes, you need to go into the shopping centre. The entrance is over there on your left.
Yes, I see it.
Well, you go in there, then go straight ahead. The shop you want is opposite the toilets, next to the lifts.
Thanks very much.
2.
Welcome to the resort. I'll just tell you about some of our facilities. We've got a lovely little pond where guests are welcome to sit and have a picnic. You'll see it as you come in the entrance. In the middle of the resort, you'll see a circular courtyard. It has some lovely cool places to sit as well. You can see our famous fig tree from there. It's enormous. To the right of the courtyard, you'll find a small shop where you can pick up things like postcards and stamps. It's just behind the tree.
3.
Hello, Professor Jones. Would you be able to help me with my assignment?
Of course. Are you having problems with choosing a good location for the new bridge?
Yes. I was thinking of putting it right in the middle, as the river is at its narrowest there.
Well, that would save costs.
Exactly. But I realised that it would create costs in other areas, as it would mean some important buildings being knocked down. So I think it would be better if it's at the eastern end of the motorway.
That's a good idea. It would be a lot more useful than if it was at the western end.
4.
The Traveston frog is different to many other species of frog. It is very small and so, unlike other species, it is unable to live in the area of a pond, though it does need to live in fairly close proximity to water so that it can feed. Rather than choosing the safety of a tree, which would be too tall and may actually increase the threat from predators, it elects to live in a tiny burrow surrounded by bushes.
Recording 17.
Right, let's check the answers. So number 1, A, B, or C. Great, A. So often we can get our answer from listening to words like they said opposite, the toilets, next to, the lifts. So these words for location can help us to answer the question. What about number 2? Okay, B is correct. So what they said was behind the tree. So listen out for these words that describe location, and they will help you to answer the question. They said to the right of the courtyard, behind the tree. Number 3. So remember I said you need to listen out for direction, and this will help you answer the question. So the correct answer here is C. And she said that the best place would be at the eastern end. Okay. They did mention the middle and the western end, but they said the best place would be the eastern end. Last one, number 4. Okay, good. A is correct. They did mention the pond, but they said he's unable to live in the pond. He just needs to live in close proximity to the pond. And another word they used was surrounded. He needs to live in a burrow surrounded by bushes. Okay. So they're always going to be using words for location, words that will help us determine the location of what they're asking for in the question. Okay, so these words will help you to answer. You may also need to listen to directions. So let's practice that now. We're going to listen to an audio, and you need to decide which map matches the audio. Okay, so does A match the audio, B, or C? Okay, so as you listen, just follow the arrows and see which one matches with the audio.
Recording 17.
Can you tell me how to get to the supermarket?
Sure.
Let me have a think. We're in Bridge Street now, and it's in Queen's Road.
Oh, the only street I know is Riverside Street. I know my hotel's on the corner there.
That's right. You need to go up Bridge Street as far as the traffic lights, then turn right. That's Riverside Street.
I see.
Then you walk along there to the next set of traffic lights, and you'll be at Queen's Road. You turn left there, and it's the second shop on your left.
Thanks very much.
Okay, so which map matches the audio? A, B, or C? Good, B. Okay, so you may need to follow directions, and now you need to listen for words like left, right, go straight, turn at the traffic lights, and so on. You can draw on the map as well if you find this helpful. So as you can, there's also different words on the maps. So she mentions the hotel, but sometimes the words are there as distractors. So you're listening for them, but they don't actually say them. Okay, so they may not mention all the words or all the roads that you can see on the map. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do today is a map completion task. So you can see that there's 4 empty questions that you need to answer. So you match the correct option in the box to the correct space on the map. So remember, we have some time to study the map before we start. The first thing we need to think about is, what is this map of? So have a look at the map. Can you tell me, what is the map of? You can look for any titles or headings to help you. So this is the context. What are they going to be talking about? You don't have to guess. Look at the map carefully. Look for any headings or titles that's going to give you the context. Great. Our context here is Brookside Market. Okay, so please look for any titles on the map that will give you the context of what you're going to listen to. Okay, so you know that you're going to be listening to somebody talking about Brookside Market. The next thing we're going to look at is the landmarks or the features that we can see. So please type in the chat box the features that you can see on the map. These may be words or pictures. Good. Entrance, barbecue, toilets, information. Okay, not just words, but also pictures that we can see. Great. Some stalls, a fountain, playground, or swings. Some benches, or it may be a place to eat. And in the middle here, we have a tree. Right, the next thing to think about is, where is the entrance? So if you had to describe to me where this is on the map, how would you describe that? Where is the entrance on the map? For example, is it at the top of the map? Is it at the bottom of the map? Is it on the left of the map? Or is it on the right? Okay, so where is the entrance? Okay, good. It's on the bottom left. So they may just talk about the map in this way as well. We can say the bottom left-hand side or just on the bottom left is fine as well. So when the speaker describes things on the map, they may use words like this. What's at the top of the map, what's on the left-hand side, what's on the right-hand side, and so on. The next thing to look at is the box of options. Now these will not be described in order, so the order is random. And also you may hear paraphrases of these words. So you may not actually get the same words in the audio as what you can see in the box. They may use paraphrases of these words in the audio. Now I also want you to tell me how many distractors are there in the box? How many of these are going to be incorrect options? How many of them will be distractors? Great, 2. Okay, so there's 2 distractors because here we have 4 questions, only 2 of the answers are correct. Okay, so quickly read through the options. I'll give you 30 seconds, have a look at the map again, and then I'm going to play the audio. So you need to match the words in the box to the correct space on the map.
Recording 18.
Morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. Now, from next week, there'll be a rota for all of you to help out at the information stand here at Brookside Market. So, I just wanted to give you a briefing about what you can find where. The information booth is to the left of the entrance, and I've given you all a plan to mark important places on. One of the most common inquiries is, where can I pay for my parking? People are amazed when we tell them that it's free now. We used to charge for it, and there was a ticket booth to the left of the entrance, but now that it has been turned into a small stage, we hold cookery demonstrations there. Local chefs come in and show people how to prepare dishes. It's really popular, and you get a nice view of the fountain there. We have over 50 stalls at the markets, selling everything from fresh fruit and vegetables to locally made crafts, which unfortunately means people won't find things like books or anything second-hand. We have a famous baker at the market, and many people get here really early just to buy his produce. His stall is located at the back of the markets, next to the barbecue. We sell burgers and sausages there, but a lot of people like to bring their own lunch to eat, and they're welcome to go to the special area near the tree in the middle of the markets, where they can do just that. It's handy for the toilets too. The markets are located next to a circus school that holds classes for children at the weekend, so we often get a lot of family groups in. There's a playground on the right-hand side that's popular with them, and just in front of that is where the farmers bring along chickens, rabbits and lambs for the children to pet. That's always a very popular feature, so you'll definitely be asked about that. Just let people know there is a small fee if the children want to feed them. Well, that's everything for now.
Okay, if you have any answers that you're not sure about and you left blank, I want you to take a guess. So especially for multiple choice or matching tasks, it's better to just guess if you're not sure. Okay, you don't get any minus marks in IELTS, but you never know, you could get the answer right, even if you're not sure. So please write down an answer for every one of the questions, even if you're not 100% sure if it's correct. So we're going to check the answers. Please just write the letter only in the chat to make it easier. So what's the answer for number 1? Number 1 only, please. Okay, so the answer for number 1 is F, the cookery shows. Right, we'll go through the distractors at the end. Number 2. Okay, B is correct, fresh bread. Number 3. Okay, D is correct. And the last one, number 4. Okay, the answer is A, farm animals. Right, so we can see that the distractors were C, ticket booth, and E, secondhand stall. So some of you gave these answers for some of these questions. Okay, so they did mention a ticket booth and they did mention a secondhand bookstall, but they're incorrect. So I'm going to play the audio one more time, and now I want you to write down the reason why these answers are incorrect. So if you wrote these for any of your answers, I want you to listen carefully. Why are these 2 incorrect answers? Okay, so there's a reason that both of them are not correct.
Recording 18.
Morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. Now, from next week, there'll be a rota for all of you to help out at the information stand here at Brookside Market. So I just wanted to give you a briefing about what you can find where. The information booth is to the left of the entrance, and I've given you all a plan to mark important places on. One of the most common inquiries is, where can I pay for my parking? People are amazed when we tell them that it's free now. We used to charge for it, and there was a ticket booth to the left of the entrance, but now that it has been turned into a small stage, we hold cookery demonstrations there. Local chefs come in and show people how to prepare dishes. It's really popular, and you get a nice view of the fountain there. We have over 50 stalls at the markets, selling everything from fresh fruit and vegetables to locally made crafts, which unfortunately means people won't find things like books or anything second-hand. We have a famous baker at the market, and many people get here really early just to buy his produce. His stall is located at the back of the markets, next to the barbecue. We sell burgers and sausages there, But a lot of people like to bring their own lunch to eat, and they're welcome to go to the special area near the tree in the middle of the markets where they can do just that. It's handy for the toilets too. The markets are located next to a circus school that holds classes for children at the weekend, so we often get a lot of family groups in. There's a playground on the right-hand side that's popular with them, and just in front of that is where the farmers bring along chickens, rabbits and lambs for the children to pet. That's always a very popular feature, so you'll definitely be asked about that. Just let people know there is a small fee if the children want to feed them. Well, that's everything for now.
Why is C, ticket booth, incorrect? Good, have some good answers. So they say there was a ticket booth. So was meaning past tense. It's not there anymore. And yeah, it's been turned into a stage that they use for cookery shows. They also said that they used to pay for parking, but now the parking is free. So the reason there was a ticket booth is because people paid for parking, but now the parking is free. What about E, secondhand bookstore? Why is that incorrect? Okay. Yep, the answer is quite simple. It's just because you won't find it. They said they only have fresh produce and crafts. So crafts are things that are handmade products. So they only have fresh produce and crafts, so you won't find anything secondhand. Okay, so that means that there can't be a secondhand store, which is E. All right, so there will be a reason why the answers are incorrect. So you need to listen carefully for those reasons. Okay, let's end the lesson there. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat.